What are 2 to 3 ideas that you guys individually think is most important for the economy to try and best their way through this situation? This could be related to fiscal, state government, or monetary policy decisions. What do you guys think is the best opportunity for us to, climb out of this hole?
I think this is a really strange time where the Fed is only going to have so much impact. They can't stimulate their way to get people to go spend the night out with the family because you can't spend the night out with the family. So the only thing we can do, I think the best thing we can do is try to get people feeling as safe as possible when we actually do open the economy, such that the economy really is strong at that point, as opposed to sort of limping along.
I think the first thing that, just worries me the most is the amount of stress and hardship this has put on our healthcare system. I think it's really highlighted some of the gaps that we have, particularly for diverse communities, and I think also for folks who are underserved communities. And I think it's an opportunity for us to really move into the next generation and use things like telemedicine. As an employer, we need to look at our benefits to make sure that all of our employees, are with healthcare plans or have access to things that can be done virtually, more convenient. All times of night, you can access a doctor. Those things have really been brought to the forefront, and I'm hoping that we're going to come out of this in a much stronger position than we did going in.
The other, point I would add here, they both articulated things really well. Markets, no matter what they are, really dislike uncertainty. And I think my point right now would be the faster we can get some level of certainty in terms of how to dissect the science of what's going to happen to our population is a critical thing to get done. And so I think, these suggestions by many in the medical profession of getting more testing done more rapidly is something that needs to happen.
My question would be, how have your clients and their changing priorities affected your strategy?
Customers, just to give you guys, some examples in our business, I think for the most part, they are looking to simplify in order to maximize margin. We're supplying big companies. We're also supplying little mom and pop hardware stores all over the world. And it's a very different story depending on who the customer is. Some are just looking to survive, but pretty much every one of them, I would say, practically are coming back maybe to us to ask for what we would call terms. And so, it could be, hey, I buy $1,000 worth of your stuff before I would pay you in 30 days. Now I'm asking to pay you over a period of 60 or 90 days. Those are examples of things that have happened a little bit. That happens less so with the big companies that we supply, but all of them are looking to get a lot more simple. And it's the numbers are very interesting in our business. In some places, we're seeing actually big spikes in demand because we're seeing a lot more DIY stuff go on as people are stuck at home. Now, unfortunately, they're also shutting job sites down across the country. So I guess the way I would compare that to maybe a McCormick example would be, we're all probably cooking at home a lot more. So we're using spices a lot more frequently at home, but commercial restaurants are basically shut down unless it's carry out. And it's the same way in our business. All of you and perhaps, other people are doing DIY projects, but that's not necessarily offsetting the big, commercial job sites and the gigantic companies like Bechtel that may be impacted because of this. But everybody's looking to simplify and protect margin right now and cash flow.
So my question is, how have you guys managed to motivate your employees to produce just as efficiently, if not more efficiently, because of all the setbacks?
The first thing we had to do was just reassure our employees that they would be safe, and that they understood that our first priority was to make sure that they were healthy. and that we were going to create, whether you're working from home or whether you're still in our manufacturing plants, an environment where you could feel safe. So we set up, early on, social distancing. We put a hotline in for employees to go directly into me or somebody in HR if they were experiencing issues on the front lines in their jobs. We ramped up the communication, and we actually put some additional paid leave in place. So a lot of people were struggling with childcare or elder care. We actually put some paid leave where you actually could take time off where you couldn't in the past, and it didn't go against your vacation time to care for family members who may have been sick. In a few cases, we have offered increased pay. And then more importantly, we did put some guarantees out to our employees to say that, listen, this is tough, but if our operations are suspended for any reason, we will still guarantee your pay. We are not laying people off. So we've held people's salaries just to reassure everyone that we're going to get through it as a company. I think we've offered, those incentives, but the most important thing is, when there's an issue, if someone has a challenge at work, we're just really responsive. Our number one priority is just to make sure that they feel safe and that they do know that they will have a job going forward at McCormick.
How do you think inflation would be impacted with all the monetary policy in place, including all the stimulus packages and even what's happening with oil?
I'm not super worried about inflation on the upside. I guess it's possible if we get a really positive outcome at the end of this, and there really is like a burst of demand coming out of there, that you could have a short period of higher inflation. I frankly think that would be a welcome outcome. Like, I'd be super happy if that's the way it played out. Even if my bond prices went down, I'd be like, that's fine. Deflation, look, oil, that was a really special thing. We could spend the next hour talking about why oil went negative yesterday. It's kind of outside the purview of this conversation. I would say that oil hasn't seemed to have a hell of a lot to do with inflation one way or the other for several years. So I just don't think about it that much. I do think there's probably the supply chain problems that my counterparts here have mentioned should matter for inflation, but it's coming at a time that demand is completely collapsed. So the only way you really get some inflation out of here is if the supply chain, if the recovery is so quick that the supply chain is not back online, and yet there's a ton of buying all of a sudden, which, as I said, really would be just a good outcome. But that would be okay.